When I interviewed Pamela Madsen, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. She's delightful, sensual, flirtatious, and really connected in her body. She is trained and works in the area of somatic healing through sexual health. She talks about the in person retreats that she holds several times a year, where people get together and explore in a wonderful environment how to open up to pleasure in their body. Our sexuality is fundamental to our enjoyment and pleasure. And this is a fun interview and way to learn more about that. This is Lynn Fraser with the Radical Recovery Summit, and I'm really pleased to be here with Pamela Madsen. And she has a very interesting occupation. And I would love for you to talk about what it is you do. And there's probably a lot of misconceptions about the kind of work that you do. And how did you get into this kind of work?
Well, those are many very good questions, Lynn. My personal story is I was a kindergarten teacher, and then I had infertility, and then I um, left teaching in that form and became an activist in the world of fertility
Mm-hmm.
and made quite a name for myself in that world. And what women know about their biological clocks
Mm-hmm.
is from the study that I did over 10 years ago. And that's what got me on Oprah and all the things. And I was running the American Fertility Association. And I started to become very connected to the fact that women were completely disengaged from their physical bodies. And
Mm-hmm.
that was very highlighted with women who are going through any kind of medical trauma, this feeling of body betrayal. And um, and then I went on this sort of personal journey, which I wrote about in my book Shameless, which came out in 2011 by Rodale. I, I come from an era where we didn't have consensual non-monogamy
Right.
and polyamory, just cheating. And it wasn't very sophisticated. And all my girlfriends were all having affairs. And I got married very young. I've been married to a man that I've been with since I'm 17. And I wasn't ready for that. That was like way too advanced for me. But I envied their joy. I envied their aliveness. I envied how happy they were. It's like, God, I want that. And for me, it was nothing broken in my marriage bed. Like we did all the things, you know. I had the big O, the little O, the medium O. You know, sex wasn't broken, but I felt that there was more joy in my body and that it belonged to me, and I needed to learn how to access that. And it wasn't about my husband at all. And so I went exploring like what was available for women around sexuality that didn't include Tinder, you know,
Yeah.
and through a gay man. I was connected to all these incredible teachers, and I started writing about it. I had a blog, and this is back in the day when blogs were blogs, where people actually read blogs and they were a standalone thing. And my blog was called The Riverdale Goddess, The Very Unusual Adventures of a Not Very Ordinary Housewife. And I chronicled these sessions that I would have with these somatic healers. So for those of you who don't know what somatic is, it's through the body, soma, the earth, the body. So I chronicled that, and I had over 40,000 readers. And it was an anonymous blog, because in those days you could have an anonymous blog. Technology has moved so fast
It has.
in and what people can access. And as it worked out, I needed to leave it's a long story, read the book, you can get it on Amazon. It's funny because I'm funny.
Well,
Um,
I love the title of the book too.
yeah, yeah, Shameless, how I ditched the diet, got naked, found true pleasure, and somehow got home in time to cook dinner. Because, I was a traditional wife as well as a sexual renegade. I found a way for me to access full sexual freedom and joy in my body around me in non-partnered sex, but with like a Sherpa, with a guide,
Hmm.
and that it didn't involve me touching him or having intercourse with him or oral sex with him. It was like none of that. They kept their clothes on. And I healed my relationship around food, my relationships around my body and my body image. I became more alive. Everything became more joyful for me. I was like a light. And then there came this place where it was like, well, how do I bring this to women? Because I had been to other like retreat spaces that frankly give tantra a bad name. And tantra became, and there are really good tantra teachers out there, and there is a portion of the world that uses tantra as a code name for sex, just like.
Okay.
And so I had all those experiences, and they weren't good for me. Like, I didn't want someone's magic wand in my face. That's code for penis. So, or we could go with
I
lingam.
didn't know that.
Yeah, lingam. Would you like
Right,
to touch my lingam? Like,
right,
no, actually, I
right,
don't. Thanks for asking. Actually, not thanks for asking. So there was a lot of boundary crossing.
right.
And so I wanted to create a safe enough space for women to experience the life changings that I experienced through having somatic body work. And I went and got myself certified. And we opened Back to the Body 12 years ago. And as I was sharing with you, I just got this exciting news that Condé Nast Traveler did a big expose on sexual wellness retreats. And we were number 1 in sensuality and sisterhood. And makes me feel really good. I want to be there. That's exactly where I want to be. And
Mhm.
women are traveling for sexual wellness now, and international travel, local travel. We retreat more now, but where we try to combine vacation and learning, vacation and healing. So I'm happy to be in that space. So that's how I got here. And so it's 12 years later,
No.
and here I am. And did I answer your question?
Yeah, although I have lots more I'd like to ask.
I'm all ears.
So let's start with, since you were just talking about the retreats, a week long, what is that like and who comes to those retreats? What's a I know it's not a everyone wouldn't have the same experience, but what's generally what would someone expect?
Well, first of all, the demographic is all over the place.
Mhm.
So we have women who are 30 and women who are 80, all at the same retreat. So basically, if you have a vulva and you identify as a woman, you're in. And all the nonsense, I consider it nonsense about menopause being the end of a woman's eroticism. That that that's just a story. That's not real. That's not real.
Mhm.
Mostly women are bored. Like if you have a low libido, I would probably say you're bored. Not that your hormones are off, but you're not interested because something exciting around you, and you've been with the same person or you don't have a person and you're wanting something that you can't even name. And so what happens is you get a mixture of women, and depending on the retreat, 6 women, 8 women, 12 women, 16 women. You cannot do this with large groups of women. We have a very, very high staff to client ratio. Right now, as we speak, there is a mini private happening, a group, what we call group semi private. There are 3 practitioners for 4 women. And one woman is in her 30s, one woman's in her 40s, one woman is in her 70s, and one woman is in her 60s. And so who comes? All kinds of women from every kind of ethnic and age bracket. What happens there? Well, it depends on the retreat. What is promised are 5 complementary sexological bodywork sessions, or what we call back to the body method, where they're paired with a practitioner, usually a man, unless they want to work with a woman, because we do have female practitioners. But a lot of women have stuff they need to work out with men.
Mhm.
And they need to meet the safe masculine, and they want to feel a man's hands on their bodies. And so, depending on where they are in their story, because these are personalized sessions. So there's a retreat, right? We all eat together, and there are workshops and all kinds of things. And maybe we're in Italy and we're making burrata, and maybe we're in Colorado and we're doing equine stuff, and maybe we're in Paris and there's a sommelier and a cheese plate going by. So we're all having these shared experiences. And then when we have our personal time with the practitioner, that is built around each woman. So one woman may have trauma, and various kinds of trauma, lowercase t trauma, we call that capital T trauma.
Mhm.
Another woman may just feel like she needs to be, she's very curious about what else can she feel in her body. I have a woman right now at the retreat who actually had never had touch before.
Mhm.
Never had touch. She is so transformed right now, I can't begin to tell you.
Right.
And we do full body touch. We include genitals, and sometimes women don't want that right away, and sometimes they do. And sometimes they want to explore different things, like, they read 50 Shades of Grey, and they're curious. Like, what would it be like to have my hands touched? Or maybe they are working with their body image and being seen. It's like, where can we find for each woman their joy in their body? And then how can we help them express that joy? And it's a felt, lived experience. And then they take that out into the world,
Right.
take that rejuvenation out into the world. And we're very unique in that we have a study. So, I come from an academic background, and Widener University, I was very lucky to have met Dr. Betsy Crane from Widener. She's now retired. And she came as an IRB observer to one of the retreats and participated. She said, this has to be studied. And there's just published this year a 45-page study about our work, because we're repeatable.
Right. And it's
So,
really interesting, the findings. We'll link to that here too for people.
yeah, so we'll get a link, and then we also, if you don't want to read the 45-page study, on our blog, we had a science writer help put it into easy reading language you can understand. And we were chosen because we have a repeatable model. So when women say to me, well, that's great for her, but is it going to work for me? Well, I can show her numbers.
Right.
And I'm able to say, well, this worked for most of the women. And we have visual graphics that shows, so it's just really easy for women to understand. Women get very caught up in the roles that we ask women to play. And so we ask women to be caregivers and providers. And depending on where you live in the world, the social community expectation on women. It's very heavy.
It is.
And so when we talk about finding joy, whose joy?
Right.
The joy of them enjoying the dinner you cooked for them? Or the joy you feel in your body walking down the street? The joy you feel in receiving touch? The joy you feel in finding your voice to be able to identify your desires? The joy you might feel in speaking them and knowing them. You may say, well, I have pleasure. Great. How about the joy in raising your pleasure ceiling? Because pleasure and joy is evolutionary, changes over time, grows over time. And this nonsense that sensual joy belongs to the young, well, that's a crock.
Mm-hmm.
I am well past 50. I'm
Right.
having some joy, honey. I'm having some joy. And what's true is that when we have sensual joy and sensual autonomy and agency, then we take it into other areas of our life. So I find sensual joy in the clothes I wear.
Mm-hmm.
I walked into this little semi-private retreat that we're running for these 4 women in upstate New York the day before. And one of my colleagues, the woman who's running this for me, I walk in and she said, do you always dress this way, Pamela? Like, why aren't you like in blue jeans? I said, no, this is like what I look like. This is
What
my,
I enjoy wearing.
this is like, I dress not for performance. I dress for my joy. And
Mm-hmm.
I go through my closets and I go, who is Pamela now?
Mm-hmm.
What I wore last year may not be who I am right now. And I'm not going to find joy in that. I'll give it a new home.
Mm-hmm.
And I make room for more joy in some other area. And so, I'm very selective about what I eat. And I'm not on a diet. When I say I'm selective about it, it's like, what's going to give me joy in my food?
Right.
Food is erotic. Food is sensuous.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I just like looking at it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, what beautiful cupcakes.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to give me joy to eat it? No, actually, no, not
Right.
anymore. Once upon a
Right.
time,
Right.
my
But
favorite
you
food.
still enjoy looking at it. Yeah.
But I still like, I,
Yeah.
I love going to food shops,
Mm-hmm.
like museums.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I get such joy out of looking at what's possible, and maybe I'll buy something or I won't. The same thing with like department stores and other things. Like I take joy in that. I take joy in traveling. I take joy in connection, in community.
Mm-hmm.
What's special about the retreats is that women develop. So like this one woman, I'm just going to the 4 women, which is a very unusual little group that I have going on. And she said, I don't have anyone to talk to about this. I go, well, you do now.
Right.
You do now. You now have had a shared experience with these 4 other women, and there's a support group with
Mm-hmm.
all these other women.
Right.
And so joy in connection, joy in community, joy in attunement and co-regulation with other women, that
Right.
we don't have to feel embarrassed around talking about things. My mother passed last year. She was 96. And she came to one of my retreats. You can find it on YouTube. She talks about it. She was 93 when she came. And I had introduced her to a vibrator. And it was very exciting for her. And so she's having bridge with the ladies. This is pre-COVID.
Mhm.
And the women are talking about, like, it's difficult to sleep at night. And she said, well, if you masturbate, it's easier for you to go back to sleep. And the other women were just horrified that
Oh,
my mother would say this.
right, right.
And my mother was like, they were like, well, that's private, Roz. And my mother said, well, I thought we were friends. And I
Right.
was sharing something with you. And so we don't have a lot of safe spaces
Mhm.
to share. So my mother, I'm going to keep going back to your word joy. My mother was sharing the joy of discovery,
Right.
the joy of sensuous, erotic discovery, and was shamed.
There's so much shame anyway around women's sexuality.
Right.
So when people come to the retreat and they're having the private sessions, so I guess, I'm thinking of having sex with somebody and then having one of these sessions and then maybe hiring somebody, a sex trade worker. So that's a pretty broad range there. And I'm thinking, I know somebody who went to a sexologist, a body worker, and had a wonderful experience. And they said, I just felt like I could have bigger, better orgasms. I felt like I wasn't experiencing enough sexual pleasure. What is people's experience with that? Like you talk about empowerment a lot. So one of the things that often doesn't happen when women are having sex, especially with men, is we don't get to really center our own pleasure. So could you just talk about that a little bit?
Well, that's a lot.
It is, yeah, I know.
Okay, so let me just sort of break it down. All right. Partner sex is over here.
Mhm.
Um, your partner is not your therapist.
Right.
Your partner is not your sex educator per se. That's not what they're showing up to be. I had a woman who was like, well, I have a new lover and I'm kind of hoping he'll be my sexual healer. And I was like, no, he's signing up for a lover. He's signing up for a partner, a date, whatever. He's not signing up for the job of being your sexual healer. And he probably doesn't have the skills.
Right.
When women go into a space of wanting, and half of our women are married, FYI,
Mhm.
okay? And some of the husbands found the retreats for the women, okay? So at the retreat, you have an opportunity to maybe share your fantasies with somebody who you don't live with. So if I am being really vulnerable with my husband, per se, let's say with my husband,
Mhm.
and I say to my husband, well, I read 50 Shades of Grey and I'm really curious about rope and spanking. He may say, great, let's try that. Or he may go, you're a fucking freak,
Right.
right? Like, you want me to spank you? You want me to like, and so now my partner knows forever this thing about me.
Right.
So sometimes we need a safe space where we're not going to be judged, we're going to be accepted, and our needs are going to be fulfilled with a professional who knows what they're doing.
Right.
And we get to explore our fantasies. We get to explore touch. Maybe with our partner, we're not having satisfying sex because we don't know how to speak it. We don't
Mhm.
even know what it feels like to have satisfying touch.
Right.
Okay?
Mhm.
We don't know our own bodies. How are we going to tell our partner what we want? So in these sessions, the women have an opportunity to speak their fantasies, to experiment with touch. It's centered on them. What is it that you need, want, desire? I don't know. Let's experiment. What feels good to you? They know that there's no intercourse.
Mhm.
They know that there's not going to be a surprise penis popping out. That they know that they're not expected, nor is it in our agreements for them to pleasure our practitioners. Everything that is done is for them. Our practitioners keep their clothes on. When we do genital touch, they wear gloves.
Mm-hmm.
And there is loving connection.
Mm-hmm.
They will feel cared for and held and appreciated. And the women talk about the acceptance. And so that's what a practitioner, he's like a Sherpa, he's a guide for this woman, this vulnerable, possibly frightened woman initially,
Mm-hmm.
to hold her through that. And our practitioners, because we do so many retreats a year and they work with so many different kinds of women, have a tremendous amount of historical knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
as well as knowing that every woman is her own self. And
They're also trained.
they're trained.
Yeah.
Now, sex worker. Now you can put our people in that category. Like you can call me a sex worker. I work with sex. And the kind of sex workers we are is that we're not prostitutes. We're also not surrogates, which is a whole other line of sex work, where you learn two-way touch. We are one-way touch, where the woman learns to receive touch. How do you speak around it? Can you say slower, faster, harder, softer, just like that? Can you learn how to communicate what feels good to you, right? Prostitution is often around entertainment. And people get a lot of yummy things from prostitution. I'm not going to stand in judgment in any way of my brothers and sisters who do that kind of sex work. Surrogacy is for people who don't know how to do a relationship and maybe never had intercourse. And they really need to do that whole thing, and it's prescribed. What we do that's different and similar to surrogacy is that we do a triadic model, which means that the practitioner is there for the woman, but also a female safe port who's a therapist. And so each woman has a practitioner and a safe port, and we all talk. There are no secrets. And so the secrecy versus privacy, right? So we don't believe in secrets at our retreat. In the world, yes, you don't have to tell the world anything. But we want you to have the benefit of all of us, like really looking at you. And so we don't eat our dinners usually with our women. That's usually when the staff masterminds about what's going on. So there's 3 different buckets, maybe 4 different buckets.
Right.
Did I answer that question?
Yes, yes.
What did I miss? Was there a nuance that I missed?
No, I think you did answer the question very well. And they are very clearly different buckets.
They are very different.
Very clearly different. Yeah. Yeah. So what happens when somebody has sexual trauma from childhood or from previous sexual assault or something like that? Do you have a lot of people coming to you in that situation that are looking to heal that?
Unfortunately, yeah. For these 4 women that are doing this, 2 of them say that they have trauma. One from a father, one from just bad experiences with men. What we recommend is hopefully you're working with a therapist, not just us. They fill out a big intake form, telling us everything about them, what medications they're on, what their story is. Then they have a meeting with their practitioner, a Zoom meeting just like this, before they attend the retreat.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a welcome call. And then there are support groups in our forum. We have a private forum where we give free support groups forever for the women. And dealing with trauma is that we don't actually try to work on unraveling their story. They've told their story a bunch of times.
Right.
We know particular things that may be important to know, like the sound of a smack could really be upsetting to that person. So if that person's going to be in a room and something's being demonstrated, we may remove that woman.
Right.
Um, Trauma is released through the body. And so sometimes through receiving pleasurable touch, by receiving full body touch, we don't focus on the genitals. We do whole body,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Through breath, through sound, through dance, through movement, through crying, through emotional release work, through mat work. Women organically release trauma. And they release it without telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
And do I understand it? No, not really. It happens every day back to the body, where women are releasing trauma, releasing fears, and coming back to their own essential, joyful nature. Um, yeah,
Well, and we know that trauma disconnects us from our body, any kind of trauma.
yeah,
And our sexuality is often really affected when we're really at a vulnerable age, especially if we're a child or an early teenager, um, young 20s. And I mean, it could happen at any age, but it just seems like it's such a sad thing to see that part of us, to disconnect from that part of us, that our sexuality, our sexual expression, our joy. Um, so it must be really rewarding for you to work with this in this area and to really help people come into their own
it's a big deal.
freedom.
It's a big deal. I'm even listening to this one beautiful woman, just retired, and we had just done this group exercise, and it was nighttime, and she was sitting on the couch. She was holding a pillow, and I was like, "Are you all right?" She said, "Pamela, I'm completely changed from the moment I walked into that space where we did this group ritual,
Hmm.
um, and now, and I'm just allowing myself to feel this. And thank you so much for creating this space for us."
Mm.
And that's what this is built on. This is built on, like, if nothing happened but that woman healed something she didn't even know she could heal or name or understand,
Right. Hmm.
then my job, my heart is open.
Hmm.
And that's what this company, that's what Back to the Body is built around. It's built around women having a safe place to come and be seen and held and find their joy and their pleasure, release their grief, release their trauma, learn how to repair,
Hmm.
learn how to self regulate, find female friendship.
Yeah, it's
Because,
interesting that you're in that category of sisterhood as well.
yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Because most women um, compete and compare with other women all the time. And so women come and they heal their mother wound, and they heal their sister wounds, and there's no competition. We remove it
Hmm.
because everyone gets the same slice of cake, so you don't have to worry. There's
Right.
no
Right.
what we call mate competition. That's gone.
Hmm.
Oh, you're assigned to Neil. You're going to be with Neil all week.
Hmm. Right.
Yes, Sally may have hair that you are so jealous over, but she's not going to take Neil away from you.
Right. Right.
She's with Cosmo,
Right.
and she's happy there.
Right.
So then we go, oh, she has beautiful hair. Can I tell you how beautiful your hair is?
Hmm.
Because it's no longer about that her hair is going to take something from me.
Right.
And
Right.
now I can be joyful about her hair.
Hmm. That's
And
interesting. Yeah.
and I can love her hair.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge healing. And when women leave me, I often see them on Instagram going to Bermuda together, you know, you know.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
So the friendships continue well past the retreats because these women have a common experience and they keep the joy going.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a nice way to make a living.
Yeah. Yeah. Really making a difference in people's
Absolutely.
lives and having fun. And yeah. Right.
All the things.
All those things. Yeah.
All the things, yes.
What's your sense of what most women need to know about their sexual expression and joy?
It's different for every woman.
Hmm.
I would that it's possible. How's that?
That's a good one. Hmm.
That it's possible for every woman to have sexual expression and joy. And you need tools and you need a support team and you got to stop asking for permission
Mm.
because if
Right.
you ask for permission, you invite judgment.
Hmm.
And so, what if you miss your kid's soccer game because you're going to go on the retreat?
Right.
I mean, could the Easter hunt go on without you? You know, could you skip the PTA meeting or what's ever going on in your life, the business meeting, the this, the that? Can you prioritize yourself? Stop
That's a good one.
asking, stop asking for permission. Ask for support.
Hmm.
It's a really important thing. We need to be supported. We need community. You know, asking for permission. No, you give that to yourself. You prioritize yourself and you say, I'm interested in this. How can you, like they were calling me or one of my women, probably, um, the question could be, how can you help me afford this? How can you help me get into this work? What's available for me? Make the phone call, ask the question, see what's possible. Stop putting obstacles in front of yourself unless it's sexy for you. I mean,
Right.
sometimes it's sexy to have an obstacle. Look at me, I'm moving that obstacle. Yay, right?
Yeah.
So it's really like where how important, how do you prioritize your joy? And you know what? You can stay stuck in the same old pair of gray sweatpants the rest of your life, watch Netflix, and eat Skinny Pop
Hmm.
and scroll your Instagram. It's
Right.
not going to get you where you want to go in your life. You got to start somewhere. What I can promise women is it won't be too much, too fast, or too soon, but you got to get started.
Good point too.
And, you
Right.
know, and it's just always, that's always the hardest thing. You know, it's my program. We have 100 spots a year. That's all we got. 100 spots. We're a very small program. I said, you know, when you're working with women's erotic souls, you don't do this in an auditorium of 3,000.
Right.
You just
True.
can't. So you need a small group, you know, in order to do this work. So we have 100 seats a year. 70 of those seats are taken by the same women
Oh, they come back.
and come back and come back because they want more joy. And they got to this level and they want more, and they want to get this level and they want more. And so we only have 30 seats a year for women to join. And what we find is that it's easier to sell an expensive retreat to women who have come before than it
Hmm.
is to sell a $250 ticket to a woman that doesn't know what she doesn't know. So if you're wondering why these women are keeping those 70 spots filled, you've got to be willing actually to put your toe in the water.
Right.
And see what the noise is all about and why Condé Nast featured us. You curious? What are these women having that I'm not? And so, there's 30 of you out there. We're looking for a 30 for 24. The 70 already have their seats. Those 70 spots. So it's just about getting started. It's always
about that.
It's
right?
always about getting started. It always seems so out of reach. Right? And the fact is that joy and pain, joy and fear, joy and grief, they exist together. And unfortunately, so many people are frightened to feel because they know if they feel the joy, they're going to feel the pain. They don't want to feel. They become like iron tanks. So, I think, Lynn, I can close with this really simple thing, which is, if you do this work, I can promise you're going to feel some discomfort. I promise you may feel some emotional pain. I promise you that you may not leave with closure, with a bow tied up in your head. Nice, neat little box.
Right.
That this is going to stimulate you. You may change jobs or careers, or you may move, it's going to create change in your life. And that may feel scary for people. Oh, you mean you want me to feel? So this is about joy. If you want to feel joy, you've got to be open to all of it. You've got to be open to all of it because it exists together. One of my favorite words is a French word, and I always mispronounce it a little, so be patient with me. Chantepure, which means to laugh and sing and cry.
Ah, that's beautiful.
And honestly, that's what happens at retreats. And that's what happens when you move and you get in touch with your body. You will find your tears, you will find your joy, you will find your healing, and you will walk in the world in a different way.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for taking this time and talking about this.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so people can reach you through Back to the Body. Can you just say the best way for people to reach you?
Sure. So our website is backtothebody.org. You can follow me on social media. I'm at the Pamela Madsen, at backtothebody.org, or on Facebook. And I'm Pamela L. Madsen. I got all those blue checks. I put out a tremendous amount of free information.
I appreciate that.
Lots and lots of stuff. Lots of stuff on the website. There is a pleasure quiz. So if you're curious about your pleasure, where do you rank in pleasure? Go to the website, take the pleasure quiz. And you will then get nurturing emails that will offer you things, get the newsletter, and you'll find out about the free stuff and the good stuff and the support that's available for you to find your joy and your sexual autonomy. And it's been my pleasure.
That's wonderful. Yes, thank you so much. This is Lynn Fraser. Join us for the 2024 Radical Recovery Summit, January 12th to 21st. RadicalRecoverySummit.com.